you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm. If your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show. Well, shiver me timbers. To our listeners from across all regions of the planet, welcome once again aboard the Robin Hood, flagship to the world's one and only cooperatively inspired charity podcast network, WPRPN. Live streaming from under South Korea's heavily sprayed mid-October skies. You're listening to episode 125 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. I'm your host, as always, the ship's chief communications officer, Jaffe Ryder. This week's special feature guest is Minds.com personality Aragmar, a.k.a. the Black Knight of Bulgaria. An acclaimed science fiction author, professional gamer, and philosopher. Be prepared for a conversation leading down any number of seldom explored rabbit holes. Our first featured guest we've managed to line up via the other side of history's Iron Curtain. We very much look forward to hearing his views and opinions on a whole host of timely topics and issues. So buckle up, folks, friends, foes, and fellow pirate mateys. Connecting Eastern Europe on through to Asia, we now present to you Aragmar, the Black Knight of Bulgaria. That is precisely what we hope to do this week, reaching our hands across the waters, voices through the ether, from South Korea to Bulgaria. We had been speaking to Aragmar there in the pre-show area. Hopefully he's still standing by. We still got you there, Black Knight.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's great. Welcome to the show. It's great that you came through for us here this week. Of course, you were a last-minute fill-in. We had initially booked Jack Ottman, one of the fellow co-founders, CEOs, essentially, of the Minds.com social networking and, let's not forget, information sharing, censorship-free information sharing platform, Minds.com. But we're going to, it looks like, reschedule him for the new year, 2019. And in the meantime, we're happy to have you. So, yeah, let's get the show on the road. Now, you do a lot of live streams as it is, I guess. So This is nothing really all that new to you.
Nope.
Bulgaria, though, I must say, this is the first time we've had a chance to actually connect to anyone on the other side of the so-called Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if we'll save that maybe for a little further on down the road here. There's a couple of subjects we could get into. Of course, breaking news here just in the last couple of days has been the death of this news reporter. That's world news, although I'm not sure if Bulgarian media, are they even reporting on it?
Yes, they are, but how should I put it? It's like you things like that happen. It's an ex-communist country. Well, freedom of the press is something new and exciting. At least it was exciting after the regime first fell. But right now it's like every day as usual, and we occasionally hear about a journalist probably kidnapped or probably beaten or probably disappearing or probably shooting himself in the back of the head like a couple of times. It's normal, you know how things work. When you open your mouth like too much and start speaking about things that you're not supposed to go.
Well, all she was doing, I guess, was reporting on the misuse of EU budget accounts and spending.
That's a no-no. That's a no-no. You don't speak about that, especially here because the local politicians, I mean, they have rebranded themselves from communists. Most of them call themselves now socialists, the Democrats, but they're still communists. And just like before USSR fell apart, they love gobbling up other people's money. And EU, like, use money affair. You pay some sort of a tax to the EU, and then they send you funds for roads and other infrastructure projects and quote unquote farming subsidies, which are total bullshit, but it doesn't matter. And when you start reporting about gross misallocation and like money vanishing here and there, yeah, you kind of end up suicided pretty soon. It always follows the same standard KGB procedure. Either the brakes of your car will fail, or something else like some mechanical quote unquote failure, or you'll get mugged. Again, you'll get quote unquote mugged and then killed, or you will get kidnapped and you'll vanish forever.
Look at what just happened recently in that helicopter crash. The Russian was a high level prosecutor of sorts, and her pilot, I'm not sure who else were on board, but in the wreckage that was discovered, it turned out apparently that he had 2 bullet shot. He was shot in the head twice, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the standard. The golden KGB standard.
Look at the way that the entire Polish cabinet, the ruling government at the time, was wiped out in that plane crash just a couple of years ago as well. Same kind of deal. And then on the ground there, the footage surfaced online. I'm not sure how widely this was discussed in the mainstream, but there were voices crying out and sounded like gunshots being fired. And it was all just hell breaking loose, total pandemonium. So yeah, some pretty underhanded, nefarious, and despicable tactics, naturally. So unless the people, of course, Bulgarians and private citizens in Russia, they have the right to own, like a Second Amendment kind of rights as what we find in America, correct?
No. No.
Oh, I see.
No, it's you're under communism. Everybody is equal, but as you know, some people are more equal than others.
Some pigs are more equal than others, is what George Orwell said. Animal Farm, I guess, and that was a book that Stalin did not take too kindly to. I think he had it. In fact, it was banned in Russia during his time in office. So I'm not sure. Did you ever hear the story of how the CIA actually purchased? I think it was the rights to the movie Animal Farm so that they could kind of work with the ending a little bit, I guess, something along those lines, more or less. So just exercise a little creative license, as it were. So, anyways, these are all things that people can kind of do their own research and fact checking on the side, as it were. Maybe even now in real live time while we speak and put this live stream out. Show number 125 here as we interview Aragmar, the Black Knight of Bulgaria. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. We've already got up to almost a dozen people, believe it or not, join us here in the live streaming, not just the chat, but also those who haven't logged in. So if you're out there in listener land and haven't logged in yet to Google, you might want to do that, and then you can better engage yourself in the YouTube chat area. So why don't we just kind of put the brakes on things just for a moment now, back things up a little bit, and ask ourselves, take a look more or less at who Aragmar is, a little bit about your personal history, of course, and your influences. You're an author, naturally, along with a professional gamer, is what it sounds like, and philosopher. So just whatever you want to kind of let us in on there, and paint a bit of a picture for us, if you will, as to your personal backstory and the like.
Where should I start from? Well, I always loved reading, and when you read too much, at least in the beginning, it was in Russian, because Russian was mandatory. You had to learn it in school. So most of my early reading was in Russian. And of course, libraries were quote-unquote free for certain books. They were available, certain books weren't. There was some science fiction which was translated. Of course, later we found that it was censored. So that was typical. But in the beginning it was heavy reading of a lot of science fiction and other books that piqued my interest in writing. And there were some clubs in school which were, of course, also mandatory, since you got to join the youth party groups. I will not go into details, but everybody was in those groups. Like you cannot not join. That's an offer you couldn't refuse. Like you never even knew that was you had a option of not joining this. So this is how it all started. Later, after the fall of the regime, we kind of slowly at first we began having access to Western media, different things, books, more books, some of them horribly translated, others better, but I started playing role-play games, tabletop games. We had like local clones of Dungeons and Dragons. It was so long ago, I think I forgot it. But we knew that D&D existed, but it was kind of hard getting books. And later me and some friends, we got together. We kind of pooled some money and paid someone to buy books from the US. And when they came back, they brought us some second-hand books, like old books, but we still use them. And from then on, it kind of skyrocketed. We at first we didn't know anything. We started experimenting, playing D&D, then computers, the first powerful computers really came. I think it was really late compared to the other part of the world. But yeah, we still enjoyed a lot of games. Of course, all were pirated. Because it's we are a pool country, and even though we kind of had a computer here and there, no one could there weren't even distributors who would sell the games normally here. So you by default you had to be a pirate. It was the only way. And most people back then, they didn't have computers in their homes, so there were kind of illegal clubs popping up here and there. And I remember one such was in I think in some It was in a garage. It was a very tiny space with a couple of old PCs, and we started playing the old Doom games and strategy games like Civilization and Masters of Magic, etc. It was nice.
Well, you were saying, Aragmar, the other day when we had a bit of a talk via Discord that you actually had to learn your English in secret.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was, I think I was second grade. Yeah, I was second grade. So yeah, our parents kind of arranged this. We were too little to understand what was actually happening, but we started learning in a building which had a couple of study rooms, and actually it was some sort of small library, and we studied. We started learning English. At first, was the simple things, the alphabet, words, etc., etc. But they told us to not to speak about this, because it was kind of a hush thing. And yeah, it was for a couple of years. When I was very little, I studied like this. And then there was a break, very long break. And after the regime fell, like probably two years, maybe 3 years, and they started introducing English into schools. But I already had the basics, so Well, of course, the children of the party elite, they had special high schools, special classes. Um, they could go abroad. So yeah,
Because
that's.
communism is really so egalitarian and
Oh
everyone
yes,
is treated equally. Just like we
it's
see
a
with
good.
communist China, the way that things have unfolded there historically. Yes. But just to give our listeners a little clearer sense as far as the time um, uh, end of things, we're talking like early 90s.
Yeah, yeah.
Now there was you're talking the regime fall. You're talking about the fall of the Berlin Wall. I know we brought up in that, once again, going back to the brief conversation we had via Discord a couple days ago. I mentioned perestroika and glasnost, those policies that were put forward via the Gorbachev government. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the impact that those policies had on your part of the world, Bulgaria in particular, at the time, and
Yeah.
just your thoughts, basically insights into the whole period of time.
Well, basically, the regime officially fell in 89, 1989, but it kind of dragged on for an entire year. They tried to um, they did try to send in the tanks, but at this point they lost all of their financial backing from Moscow. Um,
Send in the tanks.
oh yes, yes, it was a very famous uh, back then famous one of the ex premiers who said it, like, send in the tanks. And yeah, the military was like, fuck you, we're not sending the tanks. By the way, basically the exact same thing happened in Romania. They tried to send in the tanks against the people, like the people who are already revolting against the regime.
Ceausescu.
uh, yeah, they hanged him. They hanged Ceausescu and his wife.
I
And
think actually I remember seeing them being gunned down in front of a concrete wall. Were they not?
no, they hanged him. It's
who were the two that they shot in front of the wall?
I'm not sure.
Anyways,
And doesn't matter. But yeah, they shot a lot of high level party functionaries. They kind of chased them around Romania and caught them trying to escape to other nearby countries with suitcases full of money, gold, and stuff. But yeah, Romania is right now is significantly in a better spot than us, because they kind of did the spring cleaning. But back then it was complete chaos. The Soviet Union has just stopped sending money because the glorious communist economy, it kind of quote unquote worked, because every year the comrades from Moscow, they send us millions and millions of rubles, and of course we sent us our shitty products back, which we had like a couple of products that were produced here, and they were immediately gobbled up by the Soviet market, and everything was perfect, all roses, all fairies and unicorns, and yeah, but not actually. So when at the first like problems that they saw were the introduction of perestroika, which was actually a limp-wristed attempt by the communist leadership to rebrand the regime and try to continue to stay in power. Though they failed, it's the Chinese, like they learned from this. They did it successfully, somewhat. But yeah, it's years later we found out that when the Soviet Union failed in Afghanistan, KGB was kicked out of Afghanistan. They lost control of the local drug lords who were producing narcotics, drugs. And basically, by then, the entire Soviet economy was dead, and only the distribution of drugs worked for them, like sustained their economy, quote unquote. And when they were kicked out of Afghanistan, they lost their hold of Afghanistan. They had to pull out, and everything fell apart. So we felt it economically really hard. We weren't in an awesome position before, but we still had some, like, the basic necessities like bread, eggs, like some meat, milk, etc., like the basic stuff that you need to survive. But then they kind of they hoarded it. Most of the stores, which they were like state stores, they hoarded it and they started selling it to the black market, which was a thing during the entire, like, last maybe 20 something years of the regime. So yeah, it's you enter the store, it's like Venezuela. There's nothing inside, nothing, empty shelves, and the people who work there, like, no, we have nothing. We have no flour, we have no eggs, we have no bread, we have nothing. So
let them eat dirt.
Oh yeah. We had like long lines for bread before, and I usually almost every day got up like in around 5:30 maybe, and they gave me some money and then sent me to wait on the line for bread each morning. So sometimes I got lucky and I kind of the line was very short, so I managed to get the bread, but sometimes I kind of waited for 2-3 hours, and then some other family members will come to replace me and send me off to school. So yeah, it's that the regime kind of started to transform back into the criminal syndicate that it was initially. They had a lot of gold stashed. I mean, that was the gold of the quote unquote state bank. They had it in Switzerland. They had it sent in Switzerland. I think they failed to realize how severe the fallout will be after the Soviet Union fell apart, and some of them were like panicking, and they were killed by the others, because during those years they of course they started to take back the criminal underground scene and establish themselves there. Of course, almost all of those who were doing the killings were ex-state security, KGB style bodyguards. Yeah, that was clear for to like all of us that it's them. And it's a couple of turbulent years with a lot more hunger and danger around on the streets. You had to be really careful. But afterwards, they started to consolidate again power. They rebranded the party. It's now a socialist party. And all of the opposition basically they have no opposition. It's them. It's them. Even now when they go to vote for this candidate or that candidate, most of the regular people here, they know it's all bullshit. They are all serving the party. I mean, we have, like, on occasion, here and there, some normal politicians. I mean, normal politicians. But yeah, the rest are like all linked to the party.
So yeah, multi-party democracy, that sort of model is quite foreign from the experience that you've had at any point really in recent history in Bulgaria and other parts, I would imagine too, regions within the former Eastern Bloc, as it were. So let's just, thank you for that. And I think listeners have got a bit of an idea as to your personal history and some of the influences and events that shaped maybe, I guess, your outlook and just the region in general as well too. So we're going to take a look at what's going on here in the YouTube chat for a moment, and then we'll come back and maybe talk a little bit more about your passion for writing. How does that sound?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so just hang on, stand by. We do have a fair deal of activity taking place here in the YouTube chat area. Of course, great to see the two Pirate Joes in the house together once again, happily reunited, even if only for this one weekly guest feature live stream. We should remind people as well too that same time Tuesday nights, that's Wednesday at noon here in Asia, Tokyo, and Seoul, we have the World Pirate Radio News feature that's in place, so don't forget to check that out. A little different format and approach to things, the way we have everything set up over there, and just the way that we try to tackle and take a look at the current events, news of the day, a little bit of pop culture thrown into the mix and what have you. So Joey Boomer wanted to talk a little bit about the Polish mafia for some reason, but I think that was in maybe relation to the unfortunate fate that this Bulgarian journalist recently found herself meeting with. I guess it was in a local park there. And just to let listeners know too, Sofia is the capital of Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And that actually, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but that's from the Greek word meaning wisdom.
Yeah, I know.
There you go. You're probably aware of that. So
we have in recent years, like I think it was 13 years ago, they built a new statue of Sofia in the capital, and it's it's like huge, but it's the style of it. It's kind of post-communist era style, which many people were like, oh no, not again! Come on, guys, we kind of we are all past this monolithic. But yeah, still, I don't care about the style. It's still a good statue. But yes, that's actually true. Um, okay, so
I'm just gonna,
what do you
just
want?
before we once again, we're gonna get into your writing career a little bit here, Aragmar, because I know you would like to spend a little time discussing that whole business, of course, before we wrap things up here. That's one of the main reasons we've got you, in fact, this week. But Animal Farm, excellent read, is what Andrew Fishman says. Joe Emanon stating that there's a new Polish mafia. They found two guys in the trunk of a car, shot through the hands and the heads tied together. So I think what he's mostly working with the voice to text system there. But
Uh-huh.
Joey Boomer talking about Polish mafia because of his Polish ancestry. That's why he's doing that, I'd imagine. And I mean, Poland and Bulgaria, they don't border one another, do they?
No, no,
They're
no. It's
relatively close, but I mean, it's like Eastern Bloc type. But yeah, so
still fellow Slavs. Yeah.
we did want to talk a little bit too about this whole business of Vlad the Impaler, he's historically out of Romania, if I'm not mistaken, the
Yes. Yes.
Transylvania region. So get into that a little bit at some point. It is the Halloween season that we are rapidly approaching here, so we thought it would be quite quite fitting and a good
Oh
time to do
yes.
that. But just trying to see if we got any more quality comments coming through here. A lot of banter going back and forth. People talking about, for some reason, once again, more about the Poles than the Bulgarians. But every bowling alley that Joe Amanon's been to out in Long Island, I guess, is what it sounds like here, was owned by a Polish American. Seriously. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. And
We love them. We love them.
all right. Well, moving along. Um, yeah. So your writing career, then you had to practice your English in relative secrecy. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. What would have been the punishment? I mean, and it is ironic and quite hypocritical, of course, too, that the party elite are able to freely do as they like. You know, and yeah, there's two sets of rules. At the same time, they pay lip service to it being an egalitarian and equal society, as with every communist society, as with almost just every society. But communism in particular, it's where the hypocrisy is really quite
Oh
awful. Of
yes.
course, China couldn't be, more blatant with the. I mean, why don't all Chinese have millions to invest in Western real estate? So many are left just stranded. They're barely able to scrimp together enough to cover their next bowl, cost of their next bowl of rice, rather than going off to places like Vancouver or San Francisco and dumping millions of dollars into their investments over there. That doesn't seem like much equality to me.
That those were I should probably imagine that those who invest, they're probably connected to the party elite. But yes, yeah, it's they could their kids, they basically they lived in different country. The country was the same, but they had access to Western products, we knew one kid like that, and we once or maybe twice went there, and we saw his house. For the first time in my life, I saw TV video game with some. I think it was an Atari. Yeah, it was an Atari, and we didn't know what it is. We thought it was some gramophone or something. Like we had no idea what the hell what the hell it was. But actually, let's see. The punishment. I can tell you what the punishments were for listening to Western music. You could, if you're lucky, and the cops were like in a good mood, they might beat you severely. If you weren't lucky, they would arrest you. And by the way, that also went for you being caught with jeans, because jeans were you could only buy them on the black market. So yeah, so you could be arrested for wearing jeans.
Black market? That sounds pretty racist to me.
Yeah, really. But yeah, in the early days, like the mid I think 60s, late 60s and early 70s, they could send you after your tenderizing process as finished. You could be sent to a camp. There were like a dozen camps. Could be sent off to a camp where you'll be dying. I mean, very few people actually survived those camps. Some survived because their relatives had like some stashed hidden jewelry, which they sold and bribed some certain party officials so that you could be released from the camp. But basically it meant a death sentence, and you could be sent for jokes about the regime, about the dear leader. Sound familiar?
Yeah, oh sure. Stalin was quite notorious for that as well, so I guess it was quite rampant all throughout the so-called Eastern Bloc. That's
commies.
really...
They hate jokes. They had fun.
Oh yeah,
they hate fun.
Sure. And speaking of which, how's stand-up comedy doing these days in Sofia and beyond?
Meh.
Big scene?
It's no. No.
When was your last comedy festival?
No.
Something to plan for the future, maybe. Think about
Maybe.
For the future, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, yeah, change. So, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit then, I guess, about your writing. Just focus on that a little more intently here. And you're a big science fiction fan. One of the things I was going to ask you, of course, was who some of your influences were. Authors. Who are your favorite authors?
Asimov. It was the first one. I mean, basically the first author that we could read here, because his books were translated very well, and they weren't censored for some reason.
Isaac Asimov.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea why.
He was PC.
Yeah. probably.
Or you could look at it as being not politically incorrect. So either way, he made it through. Yeah.
And we had like PC Soviet science fiction. Was a book I read. It was called The Hour of the Bow. I'm not sure why they chose this. But yeah, it was basically very, very PC, very communist, very multicultural future with no race. We're all the same. We're all beautiful, all perfect, and we're all communists, and we venture into space. But yeah, basically that you can imagine which books I liked more. So that was my early introduction to science fiction. Basically, Isaac Asimov, as you know, he writes very serious science fiction, very hardcore, as you might say. But later we got we got more books translated. There were, of course, Eastern European science fiction authors from Hungary, from Poland, from Serbia, from Romania, and they were, most of them, they were writing under pseudonyms, like pen names, and some of them, they had like good stuff, but all were like short stories, like collections of stories. So yeah, basically this is exactly what my first book that I self-published was. It basically is the origin story of each of my characters, and an introduction to the beginning of their quest. But the years before I started seriously preparing for this, we finally caught up. We kind of got access to early cable TV, which you had like for years, but for us it was like, it's the future. We can watch more than one channel, and it's not the state propaganda channel. So yeah, that was pretty revolutionary for us. And there was some early anime and sci-fi series like Star Trek, like the first the original Star Trek with Captain Kirk, and then TNG with Captain Picard. But let's say that not so much Star Trek, but later Star Wars, because Star Wars was a thing. They did show it in selected theaters, and you had to have connections to buy tickets for these theaters, but we eventually got watched it, and yeah, that made like a real impact. So basically, as you know, yes, Star Wars is more like a space opera. Certain things are not hard science, like in most of Isaac Asimov's books, and this is basically the format that I'm using in my writing, because yes, I do love hard science fiction, but it's not for everyone. not for everybody. And I like to have my characters sometimes be a little bit more on the funny side, on the more relaxed side than citing technobabble, etc. Like, I guess you've seen plenty of episodes, and you know what the term technobabble means. But yes, it's let's see, the first book. And by the way, everything that I write, I have a huge list of notes which I took years ago, like maybe it's 12 years now, while I was working in some other place, a job, to pay the bills. And right now I'm using this material, and I have a lot of it. I can write maybe 30 books, maybe more. But the sci-fi genre is a medium that you could speak about a lot of everyday problems, and a lot of tendencies, societal changes that most other genres, like they are not so forgiving. And of course you can extrapolate, you can use different alien races to speak about things which are important. Yes, I absolutely abhor political correctness, and you will not find this boring crap in my books. Let's see. The first book is, like I said, it's introductory piece. Each character has their own chapter, and they interact with each other in the epilogue. But I made sure to introduce them without spoiling too much, of course. I also introduced my space pirates, because everything is better with pirates.
There we go, and that brings us to one of the questions that we had for you, of course, because every one of our guests is required to present their pirate credentials in order to gain admission or ability to freely board the ship. The Robin Hood here is what we've christened it. So what more can you tell us then about your space pirates? I think the captain and crew would be interested in hearing a few more of the details.
Well, I can see I can see Fishman who's already screaming, "Thank you, no spoilers." Yeah, so I will try really hard. Basically, this universe of mine, it's an alternative history universe, which, although it is the current year, quote unquote, it is 2018. Humanity is now a spacefaring civilization. You have like the least amount of government cancer possible. You actually have a monarchy, which is it's a libertarian form of government. You have, for diplomacy's sake, with the rest of the galactic powers, you have an emperor, but he's just there for to facilitate like the relations. But about the pirates, well, I will not go into too much details, but the pirates, the pirates, well, they have multiple clans. They rule their own patches of fringe space, which is the part of space where the books are set. And each clan has their own special, shtick. Some are slavers. Very few are slavers, but some are. Some are specialized in big ships. Others are dealing with hidden technologies and ruins, etc. They're like, how should I put it, pirate archaeologists, quote unquote archaeologists, because pirates are not very. They will not go with the brush and the little, the small shovel. They will kind of blow holes into the temple wall and then ransack the things. But yeah, and some are excellent pilots. They have carriers with starfighters. Others have mechs, etc. But each pirate clan has their war boss, which is their elected leader. Can be either pirate, doesn't matter. They have to have merit. They have to be skilled, wise, insidious, very smart, very sneaky, of course, because pirating in space is a sneaky business, a very dangerous business, just like back in the olden days on the high seas. So let's take one clan in particular, like doesn't matter, and one typical pirate ship, which is very small, very fast, has a lot of warriors on board, trained in space warfare. They have very good spacesuits. The ship has low detection, like that you can see ships in space very easily. They kind of emit a lot of heat. So if you want to be less visible, you need to be really, really, really either small, or you have to have stealth systems. So basically a pirate ship, it has a lot of grappling arms. It's very fast, very maneuverable. They don't like to have like a shit ton of guns, because if you damage your prize too much, it's less booty for you. And you, of course, you need a good network of spies who are sneaking around the ports and buying and selling information about cargo ships or passenger ships routes, so that you can lay wait and ambush them. That's basically what in the olden days the pirates did. Actually, nobody was just sailing around without aim. And of course, the small ships, the small fast ships, which are easy to escape. Let's see. They have of course their own code. No one can just join a pirate crew. You have to pass tests. You could be part of the enemy ship's crew, and you could audition, quote unquote. You could audition to join the crew, but you still have to pass the test. And the test is they pit them, if there are many of them, they pit them against each other. They give them a very rudimentary spacesuit. They give them a dagger, and they kick them off into space. Before they kick them off into space, they kind of tie their either their hands or legs together, and in most of the cases they do that around some star or something, and you have to be real quick, really quick on your feet. But of course the audition is just part of the many other tests. They need people who are good fighters, but also people who can work in a team, because backstabbing is a thing, but not backstabbing each other all the time. That would be very inconvenient.
No,
So
that wouldn't be very good for your crew's morale, obviously.
oh yeah,
Backstabbing each other all the time. Let me just ask you a question here regarding, well, you've got 2 books so far that I can see in the Star Shatter series. How much have you actually dedicated of your writings and material to space pirates per se? Are they play a central part in?
Oh yes.
In most of what you publish?
Yeah, they play a very, very key part, because that area space that I called fringe space, this is their space. They share it with other star states. Like there is a certain empire called the Tezaran Empire, but mostly this is their space. The Tezaran Empire is just the ass of their empire. Basically, that's one of their forgotten borders. They do not care that much. But for the pirates, this part of space, this is their space. This is their holy space, which they believe that they have a certain belief system, which I'm not going to go into detail, because that would be spoiling, and Fishman will kill me, and many others will kill me. But yes, pirates are pretty central in my books. They have their own champions, pirates, and I should say that my villains the villains in my books, they're not some cheap and one-line villains. No, of course you have to have like the occasional cartoon type villain, but all of my villains, they have distinct personality. I'm sorry, and of course I have pirate characters. When I write, I present the two viewpoints, the viewpoints of the heroes and the viewpoints of the villains. And some chapters you have first or the second part of the chapter, which is like the action is being told, explained from the viewpoint of the hero, and the other part is from the viewpoint of the villain. And of course, pirates, since your adventures, the adventures of your characters, basically are in their territory. You can't write them off. It's like they're an integral part of the books. In the second book, I introduced my first my first pirate, proper pirate character, because you have in the first book you have other pirates, which I'm not going to go into detail. If my readers read the book, they all have already finished it. They know they know that those pirates, they call themselves pirates. This is the only thing that I'm going to say. But yes, you are exactly correct. Space pirates are very powerful. They are very tough. They when they fight, when they can't escape. When they're backed into a corner, they will fight to the very last, and they will die. Like, they will drag everyone around them into hell. But of course, that's an outcome that most pirates, of course, they don't want to die. So pirates, being sneaky as hell, they have a lot of aces in their sleeves, in the sleeves of their spacesuits. So they have hidden reinforcements. Perhaps they have some special system on their ship prepared for when they are encircled or entrapped or surprised by overwhelming opposition. And when pirates run, you don't follow the pirates, because when they run, they in most cases, 9 out of 10, they have a trap prepared, and when you follow them, then you get ambushed, or you kind of fly into cloaked mines, or some other device that they have set up to screw you, or they have like a bunch of no, that would be spoiling. No.
It's interesting to reflect on how you mentioned earlier Star Trek and then Star Wars, of course, and how during, I guess, following the fall of the Berlin Wall and the chain of events that ensued, there was more openness, of course, and you had a chance to actually view the classic TV series, and as well as, well, there was more access to Star Wars was more tightly controlled, I guess, and that, of course, was back in the 77, I guess, is when that came out. But Han Solo was himself a space pirate, as I recall, captaining the Millennium Falcon. On top of that, I was just going to point out that actually Johnny Canuck has shared with us here in the YouTube Peanut Gallery area a link to our Podomatic archive section or profile page, basically, that we had, that is in place and that we had been using for some time, and recently shifted the focus now simply to archive.org. There's a bit of a, extensive backstory to why that is the case, but in choosing that name, it was quite something that a couple of years ago we figured that we would run with Space Pirate Radio. It just seemed to, it was almost like there was a voice in the ether that was whispering to us, saying Space Pirate Radio would be the way to go. So that's what we opted to run with. Hey, it's interesting too to consider how, with Star Trek and Star Wars and your own universe that you've built for yourself as well, that I imagine there's a lot of mining of natural and precious resources that goes on various planets and outposts. But on top of that, of course, as I think you've alluded to, as with the high seas of the past here, just upon the on the planet Earth, and even up until the modern day age, of course, too. Although things have gotten a little more risky, that's for certain. Obviously, with any sort of flagrant hijacking or pirating of a ship, that this would be taking place in your universe in a big way, I'd imagine too. The attempting to commandeer and take command and control of ships that without destroying them, of course, too, because you don't want to just blow them out of just shatter them into dust, atomic particles, but rather somehow
capture them
through stealth, I'd imagine, or deception.
Yeah, you could. For the most part, if they can plant people on board, because pirates do that. I mean, they're very sneaky. They're very smart. If they can't do it without dying, they will. And of course, you have a lot of electronic warfare. You have powerful computers. You have AI. You have even people who are linked directly. Their minds, their very souls are linked to the computers. And yeah, you have at first, when two ships engage in battle, at first you have the electronic warfare going on. And if your ship has stronger computers, maybe more additional systems dedicated completely to electronic warfare, you might win the battle before even firing a shot. Or if you have a plant, a pirate part of your crew who is on the enemy ship, and they kind of screw their systems or plant a hack bot or a spike somewhere and compromise their defenses. Yeah, but otherwise you have boarding. So in space, it's a little bit different. I imagine that on the high seas it wasn't that easy either. You have to catch the ship. I mean, first you have to know where the ship is. Then you have to detect it detect it with your sensors or by visual means. Then you have to catch up to the ship. You have to disable the engines or not, just grapple onto it with the grappling arms. Shoot some of the turrets that can fire it back at you. Obviously, if you can hack them, because the guns are expensive, like you said, you want to take the ship. But if you can't, you try to deal as less damage as possible. You grapple onto the enemy ship, and then you unleash the boarding party. But before they enter the ship, they must win the fight for hull superiority. I mean, the hull fight. You can walk on the hull of the ship with magnetic bolts and others use grappling hooks, etc., engines. Just like you would fight on the deck of a sailing ship. It's almost the same. And of course, if the ship has security teams like corporate security, whatever, soldiers, armed troops, they will try to stop you from entering the ship altogether because it's an entirely different fight. When they enter the ship, it's completely different. If they manage to stop you from entering the ship, like protect their airlocks or hangar bay doors, which are the easiest places to place breaching charge and enter. If they manage to stop you, you'll have to retreat. If you lose too many men, you have to retreat, escape. But when you enter, when your boarding party enters, then it's almost all of the time it's close quarter fight, a melee fight. They have yes, we are back in the days of axes, swords, and spears and armor, because you have very well made armor suits which are made of special alloys. Obviously, those are expensive, but pirates, since this is their profession, and it's even part of their way of their quote unquote spirituality. Let's say they view the act of boring as it has certain religious tone to it. But yes, it is also a very prestigious thing to manage to capture a ship, a vessel, and with as less damage possible. If you manage to capture it without firing a shot, you'll get a lot of fame, like a lot of renown amongst the other pirates. But yeah, for close quarter combat, you have vibroblades, you have power weapons, which are basically, most of them are maces, warhammers. They have power batteries inside them, and they have electrical discharge. But the vibro weapons, they can slice through a lot of things. Those are not the quote-unquote lightsabers of Star Wars. Although some races have plasma blade technology, which is similar to what they have in one certain anime called Gundam. But
you're giving away a lot of your particulars here. A real detailed breakdown, essentially, of your universe, the Star Shatter storybook series, of course. I think maybe you should. That would probably that's quite sufficient. And all I would say at this point is that people, if they want to find out more, get a copy of your book, of course they can do that via either, I guess it's Amazon. I'm not sure if you have any available through Gab or not, PDF type format. What's the best way? Of course, we met, the two of us, over via minds.com, and just in the lead up to today's live stream, there was a really positive energy to things. The post that we put out the other day promoting the show managed to pick up a fair deal of steam, which was great to see. Minds Gaming was there in support of what we were setting out to do here this week, as well as Mike Hopkins out of Sweden, who's going to join us later in November. So what though, yeah, as far as getting a copy of your book, what's the best way people could go about doing that? A book or books?
Yeah, it's 2 books. I am currently in the process of writing the third one, and if I am successful, that will be 3 books this year alone. But yeah, it's they can either get the books from Amazon, either the Kindle versions or paperback, which I have very beautiful new cover for the second book from courtesy of one of my friends from Minds. who is also a musician. Nice guy. He was really awesome. He saved my life, and this is actually the ship, which are the previous one.
Well, who would this be? The musician from Einstein. Let's give him a shout out. What's his name?
Oh yeah, he's I'm not going to tell to say his real name, but his username is nice guy. Is obviously it's not. Just give me a second. I'll copy paste it in the.
Sure. While you're doing that, Aragmar, let me also just remind people, if you are experiencing on your end of things a little bit of electronic interference, lag, or the frame rate dropping out of the picture, that actually we had been informed just prior to going live that thanks to what Aragmar drew to our attention, there was going to be potentially some interference that we could be expecting here with today's live stream. Not that necessarily it was a massive, widespread conspiracy targeting us in particular, but rather simply, well, what do you think was actually behind this whole business, Mr. Black Knight?
Well, probably something that our dear friends who are trying to maintain their control over the world. Yeah, we all know them. Probably they're trying to they're back to their usual shenanigans again. They're trying to censor people. They're trying to hack people, which some of them they can't because they do not use like Google or other services. So yeah, perhaps this is one of the reasons that they would do something like that, like the last time. I think it was maybe 7 months ago. Yeah, I had a stream. We had another stream, private one, and one of the guys, his brother had some sensitive files on his laptop, and he got hacked like real time. We were talking about conspiracies and other stuff, like usual stuff, and his brother was screaming from the other room like my laptop is being hacked. So,
well, a conspiracy, of course, simply just being synonymous with the world of politics. The two, frankly, couldn't go any more hand in hand and be any more similar. I mean, one is of the other. Essentially, the two are inseparable. Without conspiracy, politics would take on a radically different form and manner than what it has for thousands of years now. It's the crux and heart of politics from what I can tell. Make no mistake about that, folks. And it's also interesting, speaking of piracy and so forth, that if you look at the word, cons piracy, which, if, once again, broken down from an etymological standpoint, is said to simply mean breathing together. So that is what, of course, pirates do upon their ships as they sail out upon, in our case, of course, this modern day and age, the high digital seas. Let's remind listeners, we are speaking this week, of course, episode 125 to Aragmar, the Black Knight of Bulgaria. Great pleasure to have made contact with him here. We've only got a few minutes left to this week's live stream, and then we're going to be shifting gears, transitioning, as it were, to the after show end of things. Of course, that is the premium content that we produce here on a weekly basis, available to all of our Patreon supporters, as well as anyone who participates in the conversation, of course. So let's also not forget to remind people that half of all the donations that do end up coming our way via Patreon, PayPal, or even the Minds wires that come in, the tokens via Minds.com to Pirate Radio Network, go directly back to charity. Half of everything we receive is set aside for Operation Secret Santa, coming up here once again in December. Looking very much forward to that, the 10-day campaign that we've got scheduled starting on the 25th. Christmas starts on the 25th. On the 15th, let's try to get our brains in gear before we Abraham Lincoln had a famous saying, something I try to live by, and I think probably anyone that gets on a mic has taken the time to reflect upon how it's better to be thought a fool and remain silent than open one's mouth and remove all doubt.
Oh, yes.
So, anyways, just a bit of a slip of the tongue, and my language arts skills are not as masterful as I would like them to be, but that's all part of the deal here. That's what we're working on doing, is improving our ability always in helping to produce these live streams and play the role of the host, of course. So so on and so forth. Now, we, like I said, have only got maybe about, I don't know, maybe another 15, 20 minutes tops, really, with this week's live stream. So there was a few different places I was hoping to take things here as far as where the conversation could go. We've discussed your writing career a little bit, as well as, of course, your youth to some extent, and life in Bulgaria growing up, and really just it's really tough to even, things have obviously taken a turn for the better since, I guess, the fall. The wall really was what set things in motion, I guess, that coming down the Berlin Wall. And, it's, I think, a lot of good, just the freeing up, the openness, and just more of an effort to respect people's basic rights and liberties, hopefully, to a reasonable extent. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, I would suppose, as with everywhere, even here in Korea, of course. That's one of the reasons we're constantly speaking out on any number of different issues. One of our great passions, of course, is the push to legalize marijuana here in South Korea. Something that, interestingly, you probably don't know this, Aragmar, but only since 1976 has it been prohibited by law. Up until that time, there was no problem whatsoever. So there is a private member's bill in place, or kind of that's been put forward behind the scenes, more or less, and is sitting there waiting to see the light of day. So who knows how long exactly that's going to take, and what shape or form it will assume. But fingers crossed here, we'll be seeing that brought about before too long. Mostly it's for medical reasons too, is the way they've got things set up, I guess. What about Bulgaria? What's I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this, but pharmaceuticals, I try to avoid them as much as I can. Unfortunately, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but just natural medicines, and the evil weed, marijuana. What is the legal status there in your country?
I let's see.
People drink a lot of alcohol, don't they? A lot
Oh
of
yes,
vodka
yes.
and all
It's
kinds of alcohol.
alcohol
Sure.
is, I mean,
Cigarettes, go for it,
a
folks.
lot of
Don't kill
alcohol,
yourself.
but let's see, the weed stuff. I think it's not super legal. I had friends who, of course, had dealings with other friends who may have been arrested by the police for possession of weed, but that was long ago. But yeah, I think the law says here that up to a certain amount, you'll get detained, but they won't do anything to you. I mean, it counts as uh, it's not you're not considered a dealer. But if you have like above a certain amount, you'll get a criminal record. You'll get sued by the state, and you'll end up in jail. But since most of those who deal with drugs work with the police, since some of them are the police, only if you are like if you grow the stuff at home and you are selling it to your friends, only then you will be probably sent to jail. So yeah.
Well, how long has this policy then and that position essentially with those, possession up to a certain limit is allowable? How long has that policy been in place as such?
I am not 100% sure, but I think it's a recent
Aha.
change. Yeah, a recent change to the law. Yeah.
How about that? So you haven't really, it hasn't been widely discussed in the news then, I
No,
guess, or?
no, no.
Well,
It's you still have like the usual talking heads on the media who's like, oh, drugs are bad,
well,
weed is bad, it's
right.
super bad.
Oh, geez. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
bullshit here in Korea. And you know what? It's one of the stories that we're going to hopefully address here this coming Tuesday night, same time as what we've launched this live stream. Only it'll be, of course, World Pirate Radio News show segment number 29. We're going to talk about how the rhetoric has changed over the last couple of years, in particular. Just the really cheap propaganda that the establishment for years has endlessly bombarded, brainwashing, the reefer madness hysteria of the
Oh yeah. Yeah.
masses, been relatively successful. But at the same time, once a lot of people they try it, they ask themselves, kind of scratch their head and say, we've been lied to here. What's going
Oh
on? And
yes.
how many other lies has the government told us now? Stop. It's
Mhm.
not good to lie. So maybe you should cut that out because, if you're caught in a lie, Karl Marx talked about contradictions. You probably know about that, don't you? Contradictions. So, and Marx in particular. So these are the things that, now that we're connecting through to the former, the Eastern Bloc, that something to talk about. So there's got to be that consciousness and awareness where people kind of connect the dots and say, wait a minute, something's not, we're
Mhm.
not getting the straight goods here. So, but one of the things we wanted to talk about, just kind of moving along now and keeping things rolling along as we steer things back into the harbor and settle into the after show, is online censorship, in particular, not just in a general sense, as far as the world is concerned. Dragonfly project via Google, you may have heard of that over in China. I guess they're trying to launch their own separate Google system and network or apparatus, as it
Didn't
were.
they launch it? By the
Maybe,
way,
yeah,
I think
sure,
I think they
sure.
launched it.
Okay, sure. And
If it's China and you're talking about something like they in communist countries, when they say they are going to do something, probably it's already started.
yeah, I don't even really. I see China more as just authoritarian fascist these days, frankly, because there's no. When I hear communism, I expect egalitarianism, and I just don't see much of that at all. And that's once again with respect to these contradictions that arise in our environment. That then they try to just beat us down with the more kind of forceful, vociferous. Insisting that they're correct. The establishment is always correct. Society is always correct, and the individual is always wrong. And
Yeah,
it's how
how
could you
dare you ask
the
questions?
emperor wears no clothes? Like, come on, they gotta lock this person up. So I'm not sure if you're familiar or not with Plato's cave, or the allegory of the cave, as it were, coming out into the light from out of the darkness. And then, of course, when you return back into the cave, people saying that, well, Jesus, this guy sounds totally off his rocker. What's he talking about? Look, this light business. So, but anyways, censorship though, that's the main thing here. Just generally speaking, throughout the world, China, of course, as well as what we're seeing in the States now, but Bulgaria in particular, because you've got that unique perspective there. Boots on the ground. You are serving now as our world correspondent, essentially. What's the latest? What do you see? What are your thoughts and impressions?
Well, what we see now, well, at least those of us who are keeping tabs on stuff, it's the EU is acting pretty much like the old communist censors. They're doing exactly what they did. First, we try to limit your access to information. Then they try to hamper your ability to share information, and then they outright ban certain things like memes. For example, you might have heard that they passed an act which is totally sham, like it's bullshit.
Article
They
13, the EU.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Article 13.
So basically, the EU, they are exactly the same. Those guys who are actually moving things, they're exactly the same like our old communist bureaucracy, the autocrats. They have like elected quote unquote officials from each country, but yeah, we all know how they are elected, and even if they're duly elected, somehow by some magic, special state magic, like uh, you know, um, and they go there, they are told how to vote, what to vote for or against by their handlers. They have like each of them has a specific handler, and of course, people who try to um, go against the flow, they're kind of kicked or removed by manufactured scandals, which is standard, the golden standard. Oh no, you did something, you raped someone, or you kind of you have a secret past, you have like stolen and sold the secret files or something, etc., etc. But this is the standard, the standard thing. And with the censorship, right now they are gearing it up, because this Article 13, it's not gonna work for them. People here, they have so much experience in mimetic warfare. They are creating memes just like that. Just they don't need pictures or anything. They can create memes out of thin air basically. So this whole bullshit Article 13, it's already biting them in the ass. But the danger here is that they are getting more authoritarian by the day. They are forming the EO armed forces, which will be special army created and under the command of the EO Council directly. Although they say now, oh no, this is those units will be they will be volunteers. They will be sent from each country that's member of the EU. Blah blah blah. That's bullshit. Basically, they're trying to create like their own NKVD shock troops. I don't know how long this will take. Probably a couple of years. But the gear up in censorship is, especially here, it's they're trying. We'll circumvent it. We know how to circumvent it for a time. I assume you know that in Britain they kind of sabotaged the Brexit deal, and they are arresting people for wrong thing, for tweets. Non-PC tweets and comments on Facebook. They are arresting them for hate speech, quote unquote. So that they will. This is their testing ground right now. The EU testing ground for censorship. If they can achieve this effect of self-censorship through fear, make you scared enough, scary enough, so that you are afraid to speak up and say what you think on social media or whatever. They are victorious, basically.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's up to us as engaged citizens to exercise our voices and show them that we are prepared to fight for truth and for liberty and freedom, the very same values that our forebears, grandparents, in many cases, fought and died for in the trenches and bloodied battlegrounds of Europe, as well as, of course, there was conflict in the South Pacific and beyond. I mean, why were UN soldiers from places like America and Canada sent to Korea? Or Vietnam for that matter. It's always one. Well, and stop the spread of communism. Well, Chinese seem to have come out looking and profiting quite nicely from the whole deal. So I wonder how the Vietnam vets feel now with having paid that ultimate sacrifice, and here's the outcome. This is what happens. So it doesn't seem to have been all that successful, frankly. Stop the spread of communism, and which is synonymous with censorship, of course. It's just authoritarian rule. So yeah, people have to speak out, and we have to be strong and united. And they've taken down recently people like the big fish, the whales, Alex Jones. We were told, people talking about how now they're trying to, as you say, focus on other more underground type personalities and voices, such as maybe ourselves here, as we operate in really a very limited basis, frankly. But we do make ripples, even though it is something of a digital ghetto that we've carved out for ourselves. Nothing much more than that to this point, which is fine. I'm having a blast, frankly. But yeah, it's this is there is a war, and it is a war for your hearts and minds, and it's been going on for quite a long time. And I'd like to think that the sacrifice that these men and women who did pay that ultimate price, that it will not be forgotten or just simply have all gone for nothing and been a total waste. That would be the greatest travesty. So we've got to do whatever we can to stand guard and ensure that does not happen. That's the way I see it. That's my personal opinion.
You are correct. Yeah. We have to.
Hopefully not politically correct, but somewhere kind of on the mark.
Well, the about political correctness, it was like here it was we follow the party line. We don't step out of line. This is the party line. This is what we are supposed to group think. You don't step out of boundaries. You have like the guilt attacks. Like if someone has stepped out of line, they're guilted. That's exactly what they are doing right now. The modern social justice warriors, they're the same.
Sure,
it's the same bullshit. It's the exact same crap.
Yeah.
It's like watching like some of my old junior party commissars who are like screaming on the top of their lungs, "Oh yes, this is the glory of the party. We will do this and we will do that." It's the exact same crap.
Well, we've pretty much reached the end of the road here, and the live stream typically runs for about 90 minutes. There are a number of talking points that we'd hope to address, including Vlad the Impaler, Halloween, your thoughts on Gab as compared to, for example, Minds.com. We could even revisit a few of the areas that we'd already have, covered or traversed here, just maybe exploring things a little more deeply, conversation-wise. We're going to have to do that in the after show, though. Once again, just let's get some of your... Let's have you... I can do it here from my end, too, of course. Aragmar is who you are, of course. You can be found via gab.ai, minds.com. We shared the Amazon link with our listeners earlier. They could do a search for that if they would like to. So, but just on top of that, any other just final thoughts or comments, things you'd like to let people know about just before we head off into the after show?
Let's see. I wanted to say, and perhaps I did allude, but my own work is it's something that the books that I'm writing, it's my way to stand up to this all of this politically correct hypocrisy and the so-called social justice warriors, which to me I started using another term which is called social terrorist. Basically what they do is anti-fun thought control, which is repulsive, disgusting, and what I try to do, and I am hopefully successful. My readers, and some of them are in the chat, they can say for sure. is to provide uh, young people and, of course, old people, people of all ages, some alternative to the current media. It's shoved down our throats, full of forced diversity, political correctness, and all sorts of messages which have no place there. What one of my good friends always says is, when I go to the movies, I want to be entertained. I want to have fun. I want to forget about my crappy job and my other problems. I want to have fun. This is exactly what I tried to do with my books. It's obviously ambitious. There are supposed to be 10 books. This the Star Shutter series alone, and of course some high fantasy books. Then afterwards we'll see how it goes. And also I will try to self-publish 3 books per year. Each year I will try to publish 3 books. I hope I will succeed. And also I did start a Minds exclusive novel, which is set in the universe of Warhammer 40k. But of course, to finish it, I am dependent on my patrons on Patreon, which I think you shared the link to my Patreon. Yes, you did. So yeah, people can go check my Minds account, and of course my Gab, and read a lot of content that I've posted there for free. A lot of short stories set partly in my book's universe, and of course different and fresh and fun characters. So yes, that's basically what I wanted to say in the end.
I actually did not share your Patreon link from what I can tell. Is it available via
Oh yes, yeah,
your Minds?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it is available on the Minds and on my Gab account too. Yeah.
Okay, well that's great then. Thanks once again for dropping in the last kind of minute notice.
Thanks for having me.
Jack Ottman, of course, not able to make it. We're hoping to have him be a part of things here in the feature sense of the word come 2019. So yeah, we'll just get you to mute yourself there, Aragmar, and will I provide listeners with a few closing comments here of my own regarding in particular how, if you've enjoyed any of the live streaming content we shared with you over the last couple of years, be sure to drop by the patreon.com/WPRPN profile page we have in place. Been having some credit card issues there with a couple of our patrons. Hopefully in the process of getting that straightened out. But that aside, PayPal donations once again, folks, as well as the Minds.com wires. Half of everything that we receive goes directly to charity, set aside for the Operation Secret Santa Christmas Extravaganza 10-day campaign starting December 15th. So your support is very much appreciated. If you can't do that, just share the links. Just help to get them out there a little bit. We need 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We've got about half of those to this point. We're somewhere around 500 right now. So we're now making a big push campaign towards reaching that milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Hopefully they won't decide to shift the goalposts around once again, in which case we'll find ourselves demonetized one more time, changing the rules as we evolve here. So that's never a good thing, of course. But yes, we very much appreciate your support in any form that you're able to offer it. Just, if you can't help out with the Minds tokens or PayPal or Patreon, help to get the word out. Tell your friends about what we got put together here. Check out our October schedule as well, too, via WPRPN.com. Right there. Just click on the link at the top of the page, drop-down menu, show schedule information. We're all booked up for the rest of the year. Now actually working on putting our guest schedule in place for 2019. We're looking for interns as well, too. So if you're interested in helping out in a technical manner, or a little bit of promotion perhaps, or whatever your skill set happens to be, that's what this network, World Pirate Radio Podcast Network, WPRPN.com, is all about. It's the People's Pirate Network. You can find us on Minds, of course, Pirate Radio Network, Twitter. All the links are down there in the show description area for anyone who's wondering. We'll be back here Tuesday night once again with the World Pirate Radio News. Typically is a 1-hour live stream discussion of current events and the like. A little bit of pop culture once again thrown into the mix. We're open to pretty much everything. So do be sure to join us there again. Bit.tube, we've set up an account over there as well. Why put all your eggs in one basket? Not the way to do it. That's not how you survive here out on the high digital seas. bit.tube/WPRPN is our new profile page. We've put a couple videos up there already, one dealing with the Operation Secret Santa Christmas extravaganza. If you're looking to get a little more information about that, you can do it through there or clicking on the main homepage, WPRPN.com, drop-down menu, Operation Secret Santa. We've also got a couple videos up there dealing with the Minds.com groups, how groups are put together, what you're not supposed to do in launching a group, be on the lookout for. If you are launching a group, always be sure to do a quick search and see if there's something already in place. If you want to put your own group together, be sure simply just to come up with your own unique and distinct name. It's as simple as that. Thanks to everybody who joined us. I think this has been one of our better shows as of late, as a matter of fact, and a very unique and refreshing perspective, having the chance to talk to Aragmar, courtesy of and via Bulgaria, of all places. Can you believe it, folks? What a wonder this world technology is. Both the Pirate Joes, of course, a lot of miscellaneous characters as well, too. New names that we had yet to really see or encounter to this point. So hopefully they'll be back at some future date. Andrew Fishman, Unknown Survivor, And everybody else, of course, that dropped in as well, too. More luck. 13. Just showing up here as we wrap things up. We're off to the after show here, people. On behalf of Captain Long John Sinclair and all the rest of the crew here on the Robin Hood, until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho. Aye now, there we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments, checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time once again to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay and draw an end to another week of Pirate Radio podcasts. Remember, if you're looking for a little more lively online action, keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show coming up for the next hour in either Skype, Google Hangouts, or Appear.in. Also, if you've in any way enjoyed or found yourself benefiting from the shows we've tirelessly produced over the past 2 years, you might want to drop by our Patreon tip jar page and lend a little support. Half of all network donations go directly to charity. Help to keep those numbers growing over on Patreon, and we'll be able to extend even more of a generous pirate hand. Looking forward now to the balance of 2018, we're still not quite yet booked. So if you yourself have a new, novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email via pirateoneradio@gmail.com. We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes. You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook, Google+, or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.